In the next few moments, you will feel an urge to choose a side. You will want to decide who was right, who was evil, who deserves forgiveness, and who deserves punishment. That impulse is the first trap because it reveals the part of the mind that cannot endure silence. A true warrior does not begin by judging the blood on the floor. He begins by asking what remains standing inside the person who lived through it. Long before names like Maki and Itachi Uchiha were spoken, Miyamoto Musashi warned that the greatest battles are not won by anger or righteousness, but by clarity that does not shake when the world collapses. Bushido speaks of duty, yet Zen speaks of emptiness, and the clash between them is where most lives break. When a clan becomes a prison, when loyalty becomes a chain, the sword is no longer steel. The sword becomes a question. What are you when everything you were assigned is taken away? Chapter 1. The Blade Without a Clan. Maki is born into a house that measures worth by blood and inheritance, yet she carries none of what her family worships. In that denial, she is forced into a raw, brutal honesty most people avoid their entire lives. She cannot pretend she is protected by tradition, and she cannot hide behind status. Her strength is not granted. It is built, and that makes her dangerous in a way that polite power never understands. Itachi is born into the opposite fate, a house that is feared, a lineage that carries weight like armor. From childhood, he is trained to see consequences beyond personal desire, to hold the village in his mind like a fragile bowl. He becomes a weapon polished by expectation, and eventually he is asked to do what no ordinary person could survive doing without shattering. When the night comes, he does not fight for pride. He fights for an outcome, and the cost is his own name. This is why the comparison matters. One is emptied by rejection until only discipline remains. The other empties himself by choice until only duty remains. Both are forms of self-erasure, and both can become either enlightenment or poison, depending on what follows. Chapter 2. The Modern Story, Kenji and the Quiet Collapse. There is a man named Kenji who lives an ordinary life that looks stable from the outside. He is reliable at work, careful with money, and polite in a way that keeps conflict away. He also carries a secret exhaustion that grows heavier each year, because his life is built on agreements he never consciously made. He inherited a family role, a workplace identity, and a quiet promise to never disappoint anyone, even if it costs him his own breath. One winter, the company that raised him in its own way removes him in a single meeting. There is no shouting, no scandal, no drama that would make it easier to hate. There is only a sentence spoken with calm voices, followed by a box of personal items and a final door. That night, Kenji sits in his apartment and realizes he has been living inside a clan he did not name, under a lord he did not choose, offering loyalty to a banner that will not remember him. In the days that follow, he discovers something more painful than losing a job. He discovers that he does not know who he is without it. He cannot even describe himself without using titles, responsibilities, and roles that now belong to the past. His mind begins to search for someone to blame, because blame gives the illusion of control, and the illusion of control feels like safety. Chapter 3. The First Principle, Musashi and the Cutting Away. Musashi wrote about cutting away what is unnecessary, not as a dramatic act, but as an everyday discipline. He understood that most suffering is not caused by what happens to us, but by what we refuse to release afterward. The mind collects attachments the way a blade collects rust, and then it wonders why it cannot move cleanly. To walk the way, Musashi insisted, you must see clearly what is useful, what is decorative, and what is merely fear wearing a costume. Kenji, sitting in the silence of his apartment, does not yet have a sword. He has a phone, a calendar, and a mind that runs in circles. Yet, Musashi's principle still applies, because the real sword is attention. If attention is scattered across regret, resentment, and imagined conversations, then the blade is dull and the warrior is weak, even if his body is strong. So Kenji begins with a small act that seems almost insulting in its simplicity. He writes down what is non-negotiable for the next 30 days, and he keeps the list short enough that he cannot hide behind it. Sleep at the same hour, train the body for 1 hour, read for 30 minutes, speak less than he speaks now. These are not goals, because goals invite negotiation. These are vows, because vows remove the need to argue with oneself. Chapter 4. Maki's Path, the Discipline of the Unchosen. Maki's life is a long apprenticeship in being underestimated. She learns early that pleading for recognition is another form of slavery, because it gives the judge power over your inner state. In a world that worships inherited power, she becomes the person who trains where no one applauds. Her discipline is not born from hope. It is born from refusal. When the clan falls, the moment is not merely tragedy. It is revelation. The structure that held her down is also the structure that defined her. And when it burns away, there is a terrible freedom that remains. Many people think they want freedom, but most people only want a different cage. True freedom is when the old identity dies and nothing replaces it immediately, leaving you alone with your own raw mind. This is where Zen is unforgiving. Zen does not comfort the ego when it loses its costume. Zen asks, "Who are you now?" And it will wait in silence until the false answers collapse. Maki's strength is not only physical, it is her willingness to stand in that emptiness and keep moving anyway. Kenji sees this when he stops trying to explain his dismissal as a story where someone must be punished. He recognizes that his anger is not moral. It is a craving to return to a familiar identity. He has been cast out of a clan, and he wants the clan back, even if the clan harmed him. That recognition is humiliating, and humiliation is often the doorway to honesty. Chapter 5. Itachi's Path, the Discipline of the Chosen Burden. If Maki represents the discipline of the unchosen, Itachi represents the discipline of the chosen burden. He is not simply trapped by his clan, he is trusted by it. And that trust becomes a weapon pointed at his own heart. He is asked to protect peace through an act that will stain him forever. In that moment, he does what Bushido often demands at its harshest edge. He sacrifices personal purity for a larger order. This is why people argue about him. They want the world to offer clean choices, where virtue is rewarded and cruelty is punished. But sometimes the world offers only two disasters, and you choose the one you believe will kill fewer innocents. The mind that makes such a choice cannot remain whole without a practice deeper than logic, because logic cannot wash blood from memory. Itachi's survival is not the survival of a body. It is the survival of a purpose that endures humiliation. He becomes the villain in the story, so that someone else can live inside a simpler narrative. This is not a romantic sacrifice. It is a deliberate acceptance of isolation. Kenji begins to understand a smaller version of this when he realizes he has been begging for a clean explanation from people who will never provide it. He wants them to say, "We were wrong, and you were right," because that would restore his inner order. But life rarely grants such closure. The warrior's practice is to build inner order without waiting for the world to approve it. Chapter 6. The Genocide Question. 2 survivals, 2 poisons. Now, we come to the hard word that sits at the center of this comparison. Genocide is not only mass death, it is the destruction of a lineage, a name, and a future. Whether you are the survivor who rebuilds from ashes, or the instrument who makes the ashes, you are forced into an encounter with the same abyss. The abyss is the realization that identity can be erased in a single night. Maki survives the destruction of her clan and becomes a new blade forged from loss. The danger in her path is hatred that becomes a permanent fuel. Hatred can make you strong quickly, and it can keep you awake when others sleep, but it also narrows your vision until every problem looks like an enemy. A warrior who cannot widen his vision will eventually strike the wrong target, even if his intentions feel pure. Itachi becomes the agent of destruction and lives inside a lie for years. The danger in his path is self-denial that becomes a permanent exile. Self-denial can make you steady under pressure, but it can also turn your inner life into a graveyard, where nothing is allowed to breathe. A warrior who lives only for duty may become precise, But he may also become empty in a way that is not Zen, but despair. Zen offers a third way that neither hatred nor despair can tolerate. Zen says, do not cling to the story of victim or villain. Do not cling to the story of clan or exile. Sit with the emptiness until it becomes clear, and then act without needing to decorate your action with an identity. This is not an escape from responsibility. It is responsibility without attachment to a self-image. Chapter 7, Kenji's Training. The System of Small Cuts. Kenji does not have to carry a sword to practice the way. His battlefield is his morning, his attention, and his habits when nobody is watching. After the dismissal, he realizes that his mind is loudest when his life is least structured. He also realizes that most of his suffering comes from reacting to thoughts as if they are commands. Zen would call this being dragged by the monkey mind, pulled from branch to branch by impulse. So he adopts a system that is almost cold in its simplicity. When he wakes, he does not touch his phone for 1 hour. He sits for 10 minutes, not to feel peaceful, but to practice not obeying every thought. Then he trains his body, not to become impressive, but to become dependable. The body is the first dojo because the mind learns honesty from the body's refusal to be lied to. He also creates a rule of speech. Each day he chooses one conversation where he speaks half as much as he normally would. This is not shyness, it is discipline. Silence is a blade that cuts away unnecessary self-display, and it reveals what remains when you stop performing your identity for others. In time, Kenji notices something unsettling. When he speaks less, people speak more. When he stops defending himself, accusations lose their energy. When he stops trying to be understood, he becomes clearer. This is not magic. It is the removal of noise, and noise is the enemy of perception. Chapter 8. The Showdown, not of strength, but of inner law. If you place Maki and Itachi in a showdown, the easy question is who would win in combat. But the more instructive question is, who can endure the consequence of their own path without becoming corrupted by it? The true showdown is not between two fighters, it is between two inner laws. Maki's law is refusal. She refuses to accept the limits assigned to her, and she refuses to bow to a system that denies her humanity. Refusal is powerful, but it must mature into something calmer, or it becomes a permanent war. A warrior who lives only in refusal remains defined by what he hates. Itachi's law is containment. He contains chaos by sacrificing his own reputation and emotional life. Containment is powerful, but it must be balanced with truth, or it becomes a prison. A warrior who contains everything eventually becomes numb, and numbness is not strength. Musashi would say the highest level is not the fiercest strike, but the strike that comes from a mind not trapped by attachment. The mature warrior is not controlled by resentment, nor by the need to be seen as righteous. He moves according to what is necessary, and he does not add extra motion. This is why Musashi emphasized economy, not only in technique, but in life. Kenji sees this when he stops building his new life around revenge or around proving his former employers wrong. He notices how tempting it is to make his recovery into a performance, because performance gives temporary relief. But relief is not freedom. Freedom is when your next action is not dictated by the wound. Chapter 9. The Turning Point. Surrender without collapse. There is a moment in every transformation where discipline alone is not enough. Discipline can carry you through the first weeks, when the pain is sharp and the purpose feels urgent. But then the mind adapts, and a quieter struggle begins. The mind asks, "Is this all?" And it tries to create drama to feel alive again. Kenji reaches this moment in the 3rd month. His routine is stable, his body is stronger, his sleep is better. Yet he feels a hollow space where the old identity used to be, and the hollow space scares him. He realizes that he has been using effort as a way to avoid stillness, and stillness is where the deeper truth waits. Zen calls this surrender, but not the surrender of defeat. It is surrender of the ego's demand to control the meaning of everything. Kenji sits in silence longer now. He lets the hollow space be hollow without rushing to fill it with new labels. He begins to understand that emptiness is not an enemy. It is the ground where something real can grow. This is where Maki and Itachi both become warnings and teachers. Maki teaches that losing everything can reveal what cannot be taken. Itachi teaches that carrying everything can destroy what should have been protected inside you. The lesson is not to imitate their suffering. The lesson is to learn from their precision and avoid their poisons. Chapter 10. The warrior's identity, chosen, not inherited. In the old world, a clan could decide your value before you spoke your first words. In the modern world, institutions do the same, only with different names. Titles, credentials, and affiliations replace crests and bloodlines. The mechanism is identical. It offers belonging at the price of obedience. Bushido, at its best, was not blind obedience. It was a commitment to an inner standard that could not be bought. Zen, at its best, was not detachment from life. It was intimacy with reality, without illusion. When you combine them, you get a person who can serve without becoming enslaved, and who can detach without becoming cold. Kenji begins to practice this by choosing an identity that is not based on external recognition. He becomes a man who trains daily, who speaks carefully, who keeps promises to himself, and who does not beg the world to validate his pain. He does not announce these changes, he simply lives them, because the strongest vow is the one that does not need witnesses. He also practices one final discipline that few people accept. He stops telling the story of his dismissal as his defining event. He remembers it, but he does not rehearse it. This is not denial, this is mastery. The event remains in the past, where it belongs, and his attention returns to what can be shaped now. Chapter 11. The Quiet Answer. Who wins the genocide showdown? If you demand a winner between Maki and Itachi, you are still trapped in the mind's thirst for simplicity. The winner is not the one who inflicted more damage or survived more pain. The winner is the one whose inner life remains aligned after the night ends. Alignment is rare because trauma tries to rewrite your law and power tries to corrupt your restraint. Maki's victory, when it is mature, is not the destruction of her clan. It is the refusal to let the clan live inside her as hatred. When she acts with clarity rather than vengeance, she becomes free. Freedom is the end of the clan's rule over her mind. Itachi's victory, when it is honest, is not the completion of duty. It is the preservation of a human heart inside the role of a monster. When his sacrifice does not erase his capacity for love, he remains human. Humanity is the one thing duty must never destroy, or duty becomes merely another name for tyranny. Kenji's victory is quieter. It is waking up and living the day without asking the past for permission. It is training even when no one is watching. It is sitting in silence and feeling the urge to escape, then not escaping. It is building a life from non-negotiable actions rather than fluctuating emotions. Chapter 12. The Final Principle. Presence, not revenge. There is an old saying in the spirit of the warrior: do not waste movement. Revenge is wasted movement because it hands your future to the person who harmed you. Endless guilt is also wasted movement because it keeps you kneeling before a past that cannot be repaired by suffering. The way is neither revenge nor guilt. The way is presence. Presence is not a mood, it is a practice. It is the ability to stand in the middle of discomfort without creating a story to flee from it. Presence is what allows a person to act cleanly, speak sparingly, and choose what is necessary without being dragged by fear. If you carry one lesson from this comparison, let it be this: when the clan collapses, when the village demands too much, when your name is stained or erased, you still possess one field that cannot be invaded unless you surrender it. That field is your attention. Train it as you would train a blade, because everything you become will be shaped by where you place it. Kenji ends his day, as he began it, without ceremony. He cleans his small apartment. He lays out his clothes for the morning. He sits for a few minutes and watches his mind try to pull him back into old arguments. Then he lets the arguments pass like wind through a forest, and he returns to the simple fact of breathing. The world will always offer clans, titles, and roles that promise safety. The warrior accepts responsibility without worshiping the role. He serves without surrendering his inner law. And when the night comes, whether he is forced to rebuild like Maki or forced to carry a burden like Itachi, he remembers Musashi's quiet instruction. The way is in training, and training is how you remain yourself when everything else is taken.